get started.
Sounds good.
We're going to start with the Purge, Anarchy. Which, I guess we should talk about the first one real quick, which obviously we did that whole review already, but I mean, it got a lot of criticism when the first trailer for it came out, like a year and a half ago. Everybody loved the concept. For 12 hours, one night a year, all crime is legal, including murder, because it makes the crime rate go down, it makes everybody live happily. And it's in the future, it's in the 2030s. But the trouble with this is people were very critical because they took this concept and basically made it a home invasion movie.
Yeah.
People really didn't like that, and bad word of mouth really made the box office plummet. So, I don't know if this was always the plan, or if this is basically the answer to that criticism, but they immediately like, the sequel was greenlit opening weekend of the first one.
Yeah.
And they decided to make a sequel that takes place entirely outside while the Purge is happening. So, that's how we ended up with this. So it begins, and I'm not quite sure how far after the first one. I'm gonna guess this is the next year. I don't remember. And we have three different sets of characters. We have a struggling waitress who is, I forget the actress's name, but she was the woman that was in Sparkle. She is a poor waitress, and she lives with her sick dad and her daughter. And this daughter character is really annoying. She's basically on a constant high horse, and she watches videos of Michael Kenneth Williams, who's basically an anti-Purge, anti-Founding Fathers guy, activist. And basically every single line of dialogue from beginning to end that comes out of her mouth is, the Purge is wrong, why are you purging, stop doing that, this isn't moral, no, everything must be good, stop, you must do the right thing. Every single line she has is something along those lines. And that gets on the nerves of one of our other characters, who is we're not really sure what, played by Frank Grillo, who's basically one of those guys where he's basically armored his car, and he's got an endless array of guns, and he's gonna go out purging for a mysterious reason. I wonder if it has anything to do with the lingering photograph of his son we see on his nightstand. But he's like the fearless leader guy that they follow, and has all the orders, and can get shot in the leg and go, I'm fine, let's keep moving. He's that guy. Who's apparently impervious to pain and everything else. He's that guy where when you're in a shootout with him, he can hit everybody and nobody can hit him. He's that kind of hero. And lastly, our next set of characters is a really whiny couple. Who's being terrorized by a gang that drives around in a white van and wears dead presidents makeup.
Yeah.
You got Keith Stanfield, who apparently killed the girl Dollface from The Strangers and took her mask and wrote God on it. And that's basically... And then eventually these characters all meet up. Frank Grillo's driving around. He knows exactly where he's going. I don't know why he seems to be just driving around aimlessly. He eventually comes across the waitress and her daughter, who are being brought in by trying to be taken away by this, what looks like a SWAT team of sorts. But he does the thing where he sees this happening, he's like, nope, this is not my business, just keep on driving, this is not my business, I'm not gonna... And he just sits there for so long, there's no possible way I'm going to get out of this car and save them, oh damn it, and then he gets out. And then the couple is, their car breaks down just as the alarm goes off, to set the Purge off. So they find a hiding place in the back of his car, go figure. And so all these characters are brought together into one survival pack. And that's the rest of the movie. They go around and they survive the night. That's... okay. Obviously, one of the first big changes they made is, when the first one came out, it was kind of advertised as a horror movie. And it does come off that way, but when you watch the movie, most people thought, well, this isn't horror per se, it's more like, thriller with some action in it. And the first one was very Straw Dogs-like. This one's weird because it's obviously a pure action movie, but for some reason they still tried to put those horror elements in it. I don't know why. There's a jump scare towards the beginning involving the neighbor. The waitress is coming home from work and everybody's, purging up, and she's getting in the building, and her neighbor's there. And they use the neighbor as a jump scare, which I thought was strange because the Purge hasn't even started yet, so normally when you do a jump scare, it's supposed to be something where it's like, oh, you think it's this, but it's actually just this. If the Purge hasn't started yet, what are we supposed to think the neighbor is?
He's definitely not on the up and up, that's for sure.
Why is there a jump scare before the Purge starts? There's actually two when we first see dead presidents mixed with Lord Salem guy. So yes, a lot of things about this movie are kind of uneven. There's a villain more or less named Big Daddy who only shows up every now and then. He's one of those villains that's basically like a supervillain because you can totally shoot him in the face and he'll just stand right back up and come after you with no explanation either, even though he's totally human.
He might as well be Robert Patrick in this movie.
And he's one of those bad guys where there's nothing like a bad guy with some vengeance on his mind and a scar. And the whole movie takes place over the span of 12 hours. The guy gets shot in the face towards the beginning, and then by the time it's important for him to be the big bad guy, he's got the scar already. It's not still a bleeding wound or anything. It's a scar by the end of the movie. Alright. We'll just go with it, I guess. This movie is really poorly written. It's got some... Well, mainly, it's also, the actors are kind of to blame too a little bit because of the really sloppy deliveries, but
yeah.
It's mainly the really bad exposition dialogue. Like, there's this one character at the very beginning that's there and then never comes back, and it's apparently Gorilla's ex-wife. Because he's getting ready, he's, loading all his guns, and he's getting ready to go out and cause havoc, and she shows up at his door, and she's there. This is what happens. Throughout the entire movie, Frank Gorilla's character is bothered about the fact that he's purging. Every single person he comes in contact with is pissed off at him because he's purging and tries to talk him out of it.
Yep.
And that's the only reason this character exists. And we're not sure who he is. Maybe she's a sister, or maybe she's a girlfriend, or whatever. But no, we have to have that dialogue where he says, very straightforward, okay, I'm just doing this and there's no way about it. You go back to your new husband. You go to your new family. Oh, okay, she's the ex-wife. Thank you for explaining that. Yeah. Because she never comes back. We really needed to know who she was anyway. And then there's this couple. And they're just driving around, because that's apparently what you do. The Purge is going to happen in 45 minutes, and people are just fucking driving around. They deserve what happens to them.
Yeah.
Because if the Purge were real, honestly, if the Purge were real, I don't think I would go out all day.
No.
I would just do the locking up thing all day. I would not fucking go to the store. I would have done that 2 days ago. But, whatever, we'll get to that later, some more of that. But right now, this couple, God, they're so really annoying. But the problem is the reason they're annoying is because they're a couple that's getting ready to break up. But for some reason, they're getting ready to go to the store together. No, they're off to his sisters. Mm-hmm. Or her sisters, one of their sisters. And they're going to tell her about it. I don't know why this sister, of all the family members they must have, this sister is apparently the one that absolutely has to know on the night of the Purge.
Yeah. A little questionable.
But anyway, do you know why I know that? Because they're in the car and they're playing the Bickersons for a while, and then she just blatantly after they're done fighting, there's an awkward pause, and then she just blatantly up and says, "This is exactly why we are on our way to your sister's house to tell her that we are separating right now."
Why does it matter? That's what I'm not understanding.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there are some things. Okay. Here's the thing about the first one. Like I said before, the first one gets a lot of criticism for how a lot of people thought they wasted the concept. I actually didn't mind the first one, but the thing about the way it is this one with its concept has a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
Because honestly what I kind of liked about the first one is they're both on opposite sides of this concept. There's one that says, here's us using the concept to its fullest, and then the other one, the first one, is saying, you have this concept, like, when the first one almost takes place entirely inside the house, it's kind of up to your imagination what horrific shit is going on outside. Which may be more, you can maybe think of something more terrifying than what we see in this one, which is what's actually going on outside. When you just when you're behind the closed walls and you're safe, but you know it's practically hell on earth outside, you can only imagine what's happening. And I kind of actually liked that approach. I don't know if I like it better than this approach or not, but I'm just saying I did like that approach. That it's just so horrible you can't even fathom it. The camera can't even show us. We just have to assume what's going on out there is the way the first one set it up. So when this one was going to show what was happening outside, it had an awful lot to live up to.
Yeah.
And there are things that work, like, there's the image, like, obviously imagery was going to be important here. Like, there's a scene where a gorilla is passing by, and just as he drives down the road in the intersection there, a bus that's on fire goes by. It's like the awesome train scene in Spielberg's War of the Worlds. Remember that?
Yeah.
There's the scene where he goes up to the bridge and he has to turn around because I can't tell what, but something is on fire and somebody's getting stabbed. He just nonchalantly drives by a beating that's going on. There's this jarring image where they're driving down the road and there's this girl standing on the corner of the road drenched in blood. We don't know if it's hers, we don't know if it's somebody else's, we don't know if she witnessed a murder or just committed one, but she's just standing there unarmed, drenched in blood on the corner of the street. And we get some more interesting concepts that kind of branch off with this, like, at the beginning, with the waitress's dad, we find out how rich people purge without actually having to go out into the danger and do it. And there's this really creepy scene where we find out that her dad was actually sick and dying. And basically what the rich people do so they don't have to go out into the mess is they basically pay families to give up their sick or dying relatives to purge on behind closed doors. And it's this rich family in these suits, and it's this big, nice mansion. They give him a limo ride there and everything, and then they do the purge prayer thing, whatever that is. And it's the whole family, and he's sitting in a chair in the middle of the room, and the whole room's covered in plastic. And they're just circled around him holding machetes.
That was in the trailer, and I like that. That scene actually looked like it was going to work really well, and I did not think it was going to go the direction it did.
And then we have the whole auction thing.
Yeah.
Where,
final scene in the trailer.
Yeah. That's, doesn't surprise me, but, that's kind of awfully revealing to put that in the trailer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, because it's basically the climax. There's one more climax, but it's the main climax, basically. And basically they get auctioned off to rich people, and they put you in basically a laser tag arena. and that's how the Purge works with them. Now, the problem, one of the things I was the reason I didn't think I was gonna like this very well was the first part of it, like that first 15 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I know this has been happening for a while now, I think we're supposed to assume. So basically, when it's building up to the Purge, when the commencement's about to start, we're at a point now where it's basically normal for people. But, which I guess is why they can feel like they can go to the grocery store an hour before the siren goes off. But,
yeah.
It's still too risky for me. But, I still think there should have been a lot more of a sense of dread.
Yeah.
I think that would have really set a tone. Because if the Purge was real, I would think for years and years and years after, that hour or so before the siren goes off would be the worst fucking thing in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, I would have been locked away 2 days in advance. But no, we do have the scenes like, you know, the kids on the bikes and the van, and you have, that shot of Keith Stansfield standing in the sunset swinging the machete around. More stuff like that. But there's just way too much calm going on. I mean, you have they try to make it a thing where it's like, you know, they're closing up the stores and the guys on the street selling protection, but there was no, like, extreme fear like I really think there should have been. I said they really only built that up with the kids outside the store with the couple, but those scenes were, like, really brief.
Yeah.
So, I think it should have been, like, you know, a lot of that, but, I just wasn't sensing that. And then it just kind of starts. So, you know, whatever. But, so yeah, all in all, I don't think this, this movie doesn't work near as well as it should. The characters are totally, practically, either they're unlikable or just totally uninteresting. Or like Frank Grillo, they're just such a cardboard cutout hero type that there's really nothing to them. And you know everybody's motives from the get-go. And there's just not there's just not a whole lot to really... there are those moments where it reaches, you know, what you would imagine, like the imagery of, like, the girl drenched in blood or the flaming bus, but...
Both in the trailer, of course.
Of course. But there is, God, I would have hated this movie if I watched the trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. All the big spots in the movie were blown in the trailer, just like always.
So, which is why I do what I do now.
Indeed.
So, yeah. This... Like I said, the first one did leave a lot to live up to, given, you know, the concept, but... No. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's something that might grow on me. I don't hate it or anything.
No.
I don't strongly dislike it or anything. It's just kind of right in the middle. It should have been a lot more than it was, and they could have done a lot more with it, but... not so much.
I think it'll play a lot better with the, they're doing the Purge breakout experience they have now, which you can go into those big giant trucks, like tractor trailers, and you have to escape before the Purge, and which is pretty awesome. And that's working really well, and it's getting over really well with the public. I think this will be an awesome scare zone at Horror Nights, but I don't know much about the movie the way it went into an action film.
Our second movie is Sex Tape. Sex Tape is another movie. It's basically the companion piece to Bad Teacher. It's the same director, it's Jason Segel, it's Cameron Diaz doing their raunch thing. And to be honest, I gotta say first off, I really love Cameron Diaz. She's done a lot of roles that I like, and she's got a lot of underrated movies. She's got a lot of really fucking shitty movies, but she's got some underrated movies too. And, you know, just good ones, but... and she's often really likable, but... with this resurgence with Bad Teacher followed by this, It's basically Jake Kasdan and Jason Segel trying to make Cameron Diaz some, like, queen of raunch or something.
Yeah.
Which is not really working for me.
No.
I mean, I think she can be capable of it, but these movies aren't doing it. So, what happens here is, you probably know, we start off, and basically the first 5 minutes of the movie is them fucking. Just over and over and over and over and over and over again. There's about 20 different scenes of it. And it's, that's supposed to be, shocking and raunchy, but it's redundant and a little embarrassing, actually. And it just goes on, and then, they end up with a baby, and they're like, oh, by the way, I guess we'll get married, too. It's one of those. So, time just passes by, and now they have 2 children, and their sex life is dead. I guess because they got all fucked out in the first 5 minutes of the movie, but, so, yeah, it's one of those, hey, our marriage is down, we need to spice it up movies. That's basically all it is.
Yeah.
So, they spend all night trying to do it, and they can't. And then finally Diaz gets the idea to get drunk and make a sex tape. Brilliant. So, they do, and shock surprise, it doesn't get erased, and it gets sent to multiple people. It's basically the plot of Road Trip without the road trip. So...
It's overnight delivery.
So the movie, basically the whole movie is them... what actually happened was he does this, he uses what he calls Frankensync. And he sends the sex tape to everybody that he ever gave an iPad to. I don't recall them explaining how he gave iPads to people. Did he, like, sell them, or just, I don't know. But...
He just gives them to people that has the awesome playlist on them.
Yeah, okay.
Because he's in the music business, but that's never really gone into exactly what he does.
No.
Because that's just pointless.
So a whole bunch of people get those iPads, and they all have the tape on them now. And there's a little side plot where they're getting anonymous text messages of blackmail. So, that's what this movie is, and hilarity ensues, I guess. Well, okay. Let's start off with a few things. Other people in this movie. There is, shock surprise again, Rob Corddry's playing the best friend. I've never seen that one before.
Yeah.
And then we have this character played by Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe is basically Cameron Diaz's key to success. Basically his company and her blog are going to merge and big things are going to happen, but they're very, very worried about her image. So of course this just happens to be the time this happens. And of course, Rob Lowe is one of the ones that has one of the iPads. So, here's the problem. Here's what I don't get. When this movie really lost me was this big scene. First off, I love Rob Lowe. I think he's hilarious. And I love him on Parks and Recreation. The fact that he's leaving is the reason I'm not even going to bother watching it anymore. But his middle segment of this movie is where this movie totally lost me. Mm-hmm. And you can tell this movie is desperately reaching. First off, you can tell it's desperately reaching for content when it's only 90 minutes long. And a lot of that runtime is devoted to this middle segment at Rob Lowe's house. Now, let me see if you can see the logic in this, okay? Well, for starters, the first iPad they go and get is the one that's with Rob Corddry and Ellie Kemper, I think is the other.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're friends, basically. So they go to their house, and they say, yeah, remember that iPad we gave you? We're gonna need that back. And they got it back, and it was that simple. So then Cameron Diaz remembers, oh god, I gave one to Rob Lowe. So they go to his house, but they have this gigantic plan. They're going to pretend Jason Segel has diarrhea, and she's going to pretend to be going door to door for charity. And then he invites them in, and then they hang out with him. And then Jason Segel fights a dog for a very, very long time. And Cameron Diaz starts to do coke with Rob Lowe. And Rob Lowe has this collection of paintings around the house where he took Disney characters and put his face on them.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
And he's basically playing a weird, more perverse version of Benjamin from Wayne's World.
Yes.
Except he's got a giant two-sided dildo in his drawer instead of condoms. And this scene goes on and on forever. Now tell me something. And Jason Segel almost dies like twice in this scene. The scene ends, he's covered in blood. And to cover that up, to cover up that he had to fight this vicious dog off, he comes up with this, I'm an epileptic, I had a seizure thing. They're just lying to Rob Lowe left and right. I don't get this because all it took for them to get it back from Rob Corddry was to go up to his door and say, hey, I need that back. Why did they not just go to Rob Lowe's house and say, hey, remember that iPad? I think I need that back. A whole half hour of this movie would have disappeared.
It's funny because they seem like they got the idea after they already took the time to go into the house and start the crazy plot.
See, that's the problem, is there's that whole scene and then there's the whole, like, 2/3 away into the movie, it's supposed to be for comedy. They learned that he could have just erased the video off the iPads from his own computer. And that begs the question, how is this stuff funny when we basically keep learning that it's all pointless? Almost everything that happens in this movie could very easily have not even happened.
The bothersome thing about this movie going in was the fact that about at least 15, 20 minutes in, didn't laugh once.
They keep... Everything that's set up in this movie is just a setup. There is no reason for it to be happening.
Nope.
So, and everything feels recycled. Like, at the beginning when she's pregnant, they're trying to do it. That's a scene right out of Knocked Up. Cameron Diaz, you know, having a wacky birth scene is right out of that. What to expect when you're expecting.
Yes.
And like I said, the plot's basically road trip without a road trip. So what's not totally desperate and reaching is just other plots and scenes from other movies that aren't even that good either. I think Knocked Up's really overrated, and What to Expect When You're Expecting is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Road Trip is the only good movie they stole from.
Yes.
And like I said, I didn't like Bad Teacher either, and they're basically trying to feed off what people liked about that movie for some reason. I don't know, but here's the thing. What makes this movie even more unlikable is... Okay, here's the thing. It's basically trying to be this raunchy movie, and I get it. If you're going to be a raunchy sex comedy, there's a likely chance your movie's going to have, like, some sleaze in it. Like sleazy sex comedies can work. Like, let's look at Cameron Diaz some more. There's Something About Mary.
Yeah.
There's Something About Mary can be considered a really sleazy movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's so goddamn funny, and all the characters are so fun and likable, even if they're douchebags.
Correct.
Matt Dillon's amazing in that movie.
Yes, he is.
The movie can still totally work. But the trouble is this movie is really sleazy in, like, an unpleasant, repulsive way. Like, it doesn't feel... It feels dirty in the wrong way. It's not like, oh man, this movie's dirty and raunchy. It's really, you know, this is a good R-rated comedy. No, this movie just seems really dirty and wrong.
Yeah.
And not in the good way. Not, you know, the shocking, oh my god way. Like, just... This movie just has something really off about it that I really didn't like. Mainly involving, just a whole bunch. It's spoilery, I guess, to go into it, but, there's some elements of this movie that are just kind of disgusting in the wrong ways.
Yeah.
Even for a movie in this genre. And there is I guess it's worth noting, there's a cameo at the end.
Yep.
They'll probably get a big reaction, but by that point, it's just so far gone. I didn't even I mean, in any normal movie, if I saw him randomly pop up, I'd get really excited.
Oh, yeah.
And it'd be hilarious. He's one of those people that can actually pass off as, just by being present, he can be hilarious.
Hence the new music video that got released this week.
But by this point, this movie is just so off the rails. It's not even worth it.
It got the walkout. That cameo got the walkout.
No, anyway, what I was getting at was, now what makes it even worse, what I was just talking about, this movie basically is trying to be a heartwarming commentary on marriage.
Yep.
No. Fuck no.
Just no.
It tried to be an Apatow movie in that sense, really.
Yeah.
It's really... We just spent an hour doing blow with Rob Lowe while Jason Segel beat the shit out of a dog. And right afterwards, you're gonna try and be serious. Come the fuck on.
Yeah. No one's buying this.
Oh my god. So, yeah, this... When I was thinking about this last night, I thought maybe I was being too hard on it, but now that I think about it, maybe I'm not being hard enough.
No, you're not.
This movie's kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
In multiple ways. Jason Segel's got some pretty funny deliveries.
Yeah.
But as much as I really love Cameron Diaz, and she looks really good. She looks amazing.
Yes.
But with this material, she's coming off a little, like, desperate and try-hard.
Katherine Heigl.
So, not that bad. So, you know, this thing isn't, just don't do this. And now, let me just talk about this. I was going to save this for the end, which I have, apparently. The reason I thought maybe I was overreacting towards this movie was, I was just generally having an unpleasant experience in the theater. Do you know those people, that are really, really loud, and are like... You just have those obliviously obnoxious people sometimes.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you can go into a movie theater, and you have those people that are really, really loud and proud of it. I was seated next to one of those people.
Yep.
They were across the aisle, right across the aisle from me. And this was just... It started in the trailers, and I just knew I was in for a wonderful following 90 minutes. And this is the problem, this is one of those people where they react to everything. Now, I don't mind people that react in theaters. A really reaction-heavy audience can be great in the right movie.
Yep.
But, this was getting the reactions from this person that it didn't really warrant. Like, Sex Tape is not the kind of movie I would watch where a plot development happens and I gasp and scream, oh my god.
Nope.
Sex Tape plot developments are not that fucking interesting or shocking. And it's one of those people where, of course we had to be watching a comedy with this person.
Yeah.
Do you know those people that are really obnoxious, so much so that when they laugh, they scream? There are some scenes in this movie that kind of worked, but they were brought down immediately. There's a scene at the very beginning of the movie where Jason Segel says something really funny, hits his delivery, and he says, wow, our oldest kid's kind of a dick. And I was getting ready to laugh, but then I was immediately put off because my own laughter was overshadowed from myself by the scream that I heard coming from next to me.
Yeah.
Over Jason Segel saying, I think my son's dick. And it was just constant. It was non-stop. Every time, okay, here's what happens. That scene with Rob Lowe is like 20 minutes of back and forth between he and Cameron Diaz doing cocaine and Jason Segel beating the shit out of the dog. every time it would show them doing cocaine, I heard this woman go, "Damn!" And then it would cut to Jason Segel beating the dog up. It would cut back to them doing cocaine, which we just saw. But even though we're cutting back to it, she has the same reaction. I heard this "damn" reaction like 5 times every time it cut back to it.
Oh, man.
You didn't hear this person?
I was so into the movie at the point I blocked them out.
So maybe that had something to do with it, but I don't think so. I think the movie's genuinely bad.
It's not funny in those
and
places.
That just happened to be the cherry on the dog shit cake. So
Good way to put it.
So okay. That is if any of you happen to have cherries on top of your cakes.
Chalk up another to the bad R-rated comedies for 2014 list. It's growing by the day.
Okay, my notes are really hard to read for this one because there's so many, but I'll do my best. I
know where this is going.
Our next movie is Planes, Fire and Rescue, the sequel everybody asked for.
It should have went straight to video.
It's worth noting now that two of the reviews on this video are for movies that are sequels to movies that just came out last year. Wonderful. Planes was less than a year ago. At least they waited a year and a month for The Purge, but no, this is a month early. So, Planes, Fire and Rescue begins. And, as you probably remember, Dusty Cropper is now a championship racer! Yay! And he's still Dane Cook because that's where he is in his life now. But Trouble, his thing, his engine or whatever...
Gearbox.
Yeah, that. It's malfunctioning, and the problem is he's basically going too fast, and his gearbox is malfunctioning, but the trouble is they can't replace it because he's so old, it's out of rotation. They don't make them anymore. So he's fucked forever. So basically he can't go fast anymore. The crop duster can't go fast anymore. So what he decides to do is he becomes one of those, reminds me of the firefighting music video from Ren and Stimpy. With the giant bag of kitty litter.
Yeah.
There are those. He's one of those now. So, he teams up with Ed Harris, and they put out forest fires. That's all this goddamn movie is. Putting out forest fires and puns. Lots and lots and lots of puns. One of the very first lines of this movie is them talking to a gas truck. And they say, hey, they're just blatantly pointing him out, by the way, so this joke can happen. I don't know who they're talking to, I don't know who they're introducing him to, or if they're introducing him to himself as if he doesn't know himself like he's Leonard Shelby. So they just say, hey, you're our gas consultant. Which, of course, has to respond. He has to respond. He absolutely must respond. Yup, I've got gas. And there's even a little pause for audience laughter before it moves on to the very next pun. I tried to write down all the puns.
The worst one to me was the one that actually put my head on the seat back.
Hold on. We have Let's Kick Some Aston Martin. We have, My wife was taken from me by a hybrid car. I didn't even hear it coming. Apparently they say, oh Chevy instead of oh shit. That doesn't even make sense.
That's in the trailer, actually.
There's the one where the guy is hitting on her and he's like, hey, you must have dropped out of something because you're the bomb. And then she calls him a pickup truck. Shock surprise, he's a pickup truck.
Trailer moment.
There's Boat Reynolds, the star of the best little boathouse in Texas.
That made my head hit the back of the seat.
That's right. Planes, Fire and Rescue made a joke about whorehouses.
Yes.
Technically. Oh, God. So, anyway, I think there's one more. Oh, yes. There's actually a legitimately funny scene in this movie where they do a spoof of 80s cop shows.
Yes!
But the trouble is this cop show is hidden away. It's like the plot to the South Park episode with Backdoor Sluts 9.
Yes!
It's the cop show, but it's hidden in another video box. The video box it's hidden in is Howard the Truck. This movie's so goddamn inventive, I don't think I can take it.
Most of these references are definitely not going to be...
So, here's the thing. That's the only... Okay, that's basically it. There's really no real conflict here.
Nope.
You just know eventually there's going to be a big-ass fire they have to work together to take out. The biggest conflict is he keeps having trouble. He's like, he has the little thing that's like, there's a green and there's yellow, but when he gets to red, he has to stop or he's going to crash. I expected like a little Keanu Reeves plane to just come up and go, 50, stay above 50!
That would have been too good for this movie.
So, anyway, he decides to become a fire rescue thing because of this fire truck that he's best friends with, even though I don't recall ever seeing this fire truck in the first movie. He just happened to materialize in between movies and become the town great thing. Remember Skipper, Stacy Keach's plane? He's back, but he's like not so important anymore. He's just kind of there to be acknowledged because he was in the first one. He doesn't matter anymore because we have Ed Harris and this fire truck. Oh yeah, we do have a villain of sorts.
Yes!
John Michael Higgins voices this rich people car that wants to do something involving... Fuck.
I think it's an Escalade, actually. Cadillac Escalade.
It doesn't matter. And there's kind of a... I wouldn't even call it a love story.
No, not really.
They introduce another plane that's voiced by the wonderful, wonderful Julie Bowen. I don't know what she was doing signing up for this, but she plays Miss Dipper, and Miss Dipper is basically Alex Forrest from Fatal Attraction.
Yep.
And I don't know why this was put in there, but that's the thing, is it never goes anywhere else. She's just insane through the whole movie. Her very last... She does this thing where she basically stalks him. And the very last line of the movie is, obviously shock surprise. Well, hold on, before I get into that, let me tell you this little plot point. Remember how the whole big thing in the other one was, I want to be as great as Skipper, and oh no, Skipper's a fraud, but oh, Skipper's pictures on the wall.
Yep.
He's like, he cares more about pictures on the wall than Giancarlo Esposito and Do the Right Thing. But, you know, regardless of that, they say, and you know this is going to get dramatic, because he's talking to Ed Harris, and he's like, oh, look at all these pictures on the walls. How do I get my picture on the wall? And Ed Harris goes, you have to crash. So, we know that's going to happen.
Of course.
So, shock surprise, he crashes at the end. And he gets put in the little plane hospital. And he gets cared for by Curtis Armstrong. But you know what? Whatever.
Sure.
So anyway, he wakes up and he does, oh my god, where am I? I'm like, oh my god, I've crashed. Oh my god, I'm on the wall. Oh my god, this is great. And Miss Dipper is there. Scarily enough.
Yes.
And the last line she has, she's basically the love interest. They never take that route, but she's basically the love interest. The very last line she has in the movie is, I like watching you sleep.
She's kind of like a more extreme version of Dory, if they would went further into the story.
Without the memory loss.
Yeah.
Dory's just overly friendly. Miss Dipper's a psychopath.
Miss Dipper's crazy.
So, now, and we have, you know what, I don't even remember most of the characters. I don't remember practically any of their names. The characters are so boring. There's two yellow trucks that look exactly the same. For the longest time, I couldn't tell them apart until I realized one of them has like a red hat and one of them has like a black hat. Yes. And that's how you tell them apart.
Yep.
That's how lazy the character writers are and the animators. We have these two characters here. Just make them the same truck. I want to go home. But how will anyone tell them apart? Put hats on.
Put different colored hats on them now.
That one's black and that one's red. Go home. Leave me alone. I'm drinking right now. So, but yes, this movie tries to put drama in it.
Yeah.
And there's actually a scene where when the big giant forest fire happens spontaneously, even though it looks like they've driven into hell.
Yeah, it's insane.
And the evacuation reminded me of the end of Titanic, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And it gets so serious, and it happened twice. This is what I was laughing at. I just started laughing hysterically, and you had no idea why, and I said I didn't know how to explain, I was going to try to explain it here.
Okay.
They have these really dramatic scenes where there's, like, big confrontation, and, like, because you know Ed Harris is the big, you know, I'm pretty sure he's playing out a mustache if you look hard enough. And obviously, you know, Dusty's the, I'm the up-and-comer, I'm gonna be great, and Ed Harris is like, no, you won't, because fuck it. Anyway, so obviously a confrontation is going to happen, and no, I can do it, and he's like, no, you can't, shit like that. So finally, their big confrontation happens, and this is what it looks like. Are you ready? This is how lazy the animation is. This is this big, giant confrontation. They're flying side by side, and their eyes are kind of looking at each other. They're not moving, their eyes are just moving. And only their eyes and mouths are moving. And they're just, just talking regularly. But it's a big confrontation. And it's when all this shit's going down to. It's when the forest is on fire, and they're flying side by side, and the only thing moving in this conversation are their eyes and their mouths. Just how badly did the animators want to go home?
Yeah.
Because this movie wasn't even supposed to happen. The first one was supposed to go straight to video. But somehow Pixar took their names off it and got it released through a different part of the studio. And then somehow it made money, so they went ahead and threw this one into theaters. Even though nobody was thinking about it or cared about it. So, yeah.
The one thing I will
that happened again at the end. The not emoting, just talking and moving eyes thing.
So it happened with Cars, too.
It was like that movie they made. It was like the characters in Thomas and the Magic Railroad. That's how animated they were.
and not the straight-to-video.
That's basically what this movie is in the air. Oh man, if only Alec Baldwin and Peter Fonda had been in this.
The voice casting was excellent here, but they don't use any of them at all.
Most of them are just wasted cash from the first one that are only there to say, hey, remember me? I was in the first one. Bye. They were already there doing their dialogue for the first one. It's like, hey, do you want to record a couple of lines? We're probably going to throw a sequel out of this. So, that's what I imagine they at least said to, like, Stacy Keach and Terry Hatcher.
I will take credit to them for doing the Chips ripoff and actually using Eric Estrada's voice, because he needs the money.
As if he's busy. He was here.
He was here at the Golden Corral down the road from my house a while back, actually.
That's not even an exaggeration, it's a real story.
Yeah, and it was really cool because, I didn't realize the other one, when he was, but I noticed Jerry Stiller's voice immediately. Like, I'm a Seinfeld mark, obviously I'm going to get this. Well, that was Ann Mira with him, which was really awesome to have Stiller and Mira together again on screen.
Hal Holbrook was the fire truck, I thought I recognized him.
And Fred Willard, of course.
I recognized Cedric the Entertainer, yeah.
Cedric is back.
Yeah, because I was gonna lean over to you. Here's the thing. I was actually going to lean over and say, you know what? Is that Cedric the Entertainer? But before my mind even registered to turn to you, I already didn't give a fuck enough to even ask. Yeah, Patrick Warburton's in there.
Yes, he is.
So, yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Let's hope this doesn't make any money.
Okay. Our fourth movie now. Our fourth movie is Paul Haggis' new movie that was at TIFF last year. And it's another one of those, he won an Oscar for Crash,
yeah,
so, and then it went on to win Best Picture, and so he thought, hey, I'll make, In the Valley of El, I'll make The Next 3 Days, and then he thought, well, these aren't working very well. In the Valley of El is really good, The Next 3 Days, which is kind of throwaway, but, he thought, well, my career's not really going anywhere, so, I'll do another Crossing Lives movie like Crash again. And this is what became of it. I'm gonna start off right away with some more audience reaction. The theater we saw this in, the movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and the theater we saw it in was like a really small theater with only a couple of showtimes, so the showtimes were like 3 minutes apart, so we had to wait for the other people to come out of it. Mm-hmm. I heard 2 comments. I saw, and I was like, okay, age group, it just depends on, who this movie's made for. Well, 2 demographics were covered in my observations as the other people were coming out of the first showing. I saw a teenage girl, and I heard the words, "that was painful." And then I was like, okay, so that's the teenage demographic, maybe it's an old people movie. So, 2 elderly ladies come out, and one looks at the other and says, "I owe you big time for bringing you to that." Did you hear that? You might have been in the bathroom.
No, I heard it.
Okay.
Because I rolled my eyes when I heard it.
So, I was concerned before we walked in the door. So we went in. I was optimistic because I like Crash. And these movies in general, I think Magnolia is kind of the... Magnolia in any Altman movie is the quintessential Crossing Lives movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But, because Magnolia itself is so Altman influenced. It's got a good cast. Actually, I'll bring up the cast while we're talking about the plots. There's basically 3 stories. There's multiple ones, there's characters that show up where it's like, oh, but he's important later, but we don't know yet. But there's mainly 3 stories. There is, Liam Neeson, who is a writer who's having an affair with Olivia Wilde, even though he's married to Kim Basinger. And then there is a maid played by Mila Kunis, who's going through a custody battle, whose lawyer is Maria Bello. And then Adrian Brody in a 70s B crime movie, femme fatale thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck that was, but to give it credit, the Adrian Brody portion of the movie actually is the only one that felt like it could have been a movie by itself. I'm not necessarily saying it's a good one, but it could have been a movie by itself, unlike the other 2. So, eventually all these characters will collide in one way or another. But the problem here is, it's really... the whole movie's really lopsided. It's worth noting that we're introduced to another character who is James Franco, who is an artist who just hangs around in his apartment painting with his hands. And we're just supposed to go, oh, we see him for 20 seconds at a time. I'll bet he's important later. I'll just wait. So, okay. First off, it's really off-putting because the editing is so disproportionate. We got 3 stories going on, but it really only goes back and forth between 2 of them, with the 3rd one popping up occasionally. And then, like I said, stuff like the Franco stuff just being sprinkled here and there. I don't know. But regardless, because for a movie like this to work, generally every story kind of has to have, not necessarily an equal amount of screen time, but enough to kind of, where there's a certain flow going on. But, I don't know, it just felt like there were portions of this movie going on, and then one would just pop up that I had forgotten about. But, maybe that's just, how uninfluential it was. But, it does the really, really cheap stuff. Like, it does every possible cliche this genre can have. Like, it does stuff that you're not supposed to do in this genre. With this genre, it's supposed to be gradually revealed how the characters connect. You're not supposed to basically tease it. There are a couple of scenes in this movie that are so fucking dumb as to how they handle this genre. Number 1, Adrian Brody gets on the phone and he calls somebody. But he gets the answering machine. And we cut to the answering machine, and the person that he's calling is sitting on the couch in the background, blurred out. because we know it's somebody we've seen before, but who could it possibly be? A simple process of elimination helps you figure that out. Not to mention the blur's not hiding them very well.
No.
But no, it's a big reveal at the end. And then there's the scene. Okay. I don't know why this had to be hidden. I don't know why it had to be such a big reveal. But here's the thing. Mila Kunis is a maid in a hotel. Liam Neeson is a writer staying in a hotel. There is a scene where Mila Kunis is in the room and she's cleaning up the floor, and the person who has the room comes in and he walks around. We can't see his head because it cuts off at the neck. Big mystery person, who could it possibly be? Built an awful lot like Liam Neeson, walking around in a room that looks an awful lot like Liam Neeson's room. Who could this person possibly be? And it's not even important that she's cleaning his room. It is later, but not in this scene. There is no reason to make it a mystery that she works in the hotel he's staying in. It's pretty fucking clear from the get-go. But no, let's make it a huge reveal later. They just won't see it coming. And there's a lot of those. Now, and there's a lot of really awkward dialogue, too. From an Oscar-winning screenwriter, mind you. The guy who won an Oscar for doing this genre last time. There's a lot of, the Olivia Wilde story is very sex-oriented. And she just blatantly talks about what she's feeling. And it's not, like, provocative, it's not, like, you know, raw. It's just her awkwardly saying things that shouldn't be said out loud, even if you look as good as Olivia Wilde. There's a scene where Mila Kunis is crying in a bathroom, and she tells a total and complete stranger, "I wish you were my friend." Was she playing Meg again?
Oh boy.
Okay. And there's this theme in the movie. It's the movie's tagline, and it's the very first line of the movie. And as soon as you hear it, you know it's going to be the very last line of the movie. It's a child whispering, "Watch me." They make that real enigmatic. It's going to be a huge, shocking reveal at the end when we find out what "watch me" means. I couldn't wait to find out. As soon as I heard it at the very beginning, Liam Neeson hears "watch me" and he turns around and nobody's there. It's like, oh, I'll bet this will be important in 2 hours and 20 minutes. I can't wait to find out. I'll bet it's the last line of the movie and it happens all over again.
It's like Open Your Eyes in the Vanilla Sky.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. There is a subplot. Olivia Wilde is getting texts from somebody that's not Liam Neeson. That's basically begging her and saying, like, "I want you, I need you, why don't I see you more often? I must bang you more than I do." So eventually we find out who it is that she's banging. Now, when we first see him, he's somebody that we haven't seen before. But he's an older guy. Now, the thought went through my head.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, you know, are they gonna do that? I don't know. But then when they do it, it's such a dumb reveal. Think the really big reveal in Prometheus. It's actually delivered worse here.
Yeah.
Like when just the way she says it into the phone is, oh god. Number one, obviously. Number two, why did you let that delivery make it to the screen, Haggis? It's like, it wasn't that big of a damn reveal, come on. I've seen a movie in my life. I knew where that was going.
Yeah.
Now, it's worth noting about big reveals. There is one more big reveal. There's two big reveals. There's that big reveal, and then there's the big reveal. The very, very big reveal in the very last scene. Which also kind of crossed my mind, but it actually crossed my mind to the point where when it was revealed at the end, my first thought was, were we supposed to know that, or is this a twist? I can't really tell.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's treated as a gigantic, magnificent, big-ass twist. That's like, oh my god, I'm Paul Haggis, I just blew your fucking mind. Lorenz Tate being Don Cheadle's brother was a bigger reveal than this, to be honest. But, you know, let me tell you about this twist. There weren't that many people in the theater. There was maybe 5 people in there with us. When this twist was revealed, it apparently was so repulsive. I'm guessing that's what the people that came out of it before us were pissed off about.
Probably.
When this twist was revealed, they were all behind. We were towards the front, they were in the back. It was in 2 separate parts. I could hear them behind us. And I heard a lot of groaning. And one guy got up and left.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure in that guy's head, he saw the twist and said, "Oh, well, fuck this," and got up and left. And everybody else seemed pissed off by it. So, that kind of reaction with this whole movie's building, too. So, if you're preparing yourself for that. Now, as far as the cast, okay, despite the, awkward dialogue and the unceremonious big reveals, the acting isn't bad. Like I said, you've obviously got a really nice, talented cast here. You've got 2 Oscar winners with Adrian Brody and Kim Basinger. You got 2 nominees with Liam Neeson and Franco. And Maria Bello, Olivia Wilde, and Mila Kunis obviously have cemented themselves. Olivia Wilde is by far and away the best of the cast. She's actually award-worthy, really. When her really awful dialogue is not bringing her down, she's really, really great. Like I said, the delivery as far as the big, big, big twist, but regardless, she's fantastic. One of my whole favorite scenes of the movie is just her sitting on the couch giggling. And of course, you know, for fans of Olivia Wilde's appearance, pretty much every single scene she's in this movie, she's whipping her shirt off.
Yeah.
Not a complaint whatsoever.
Nope.
There's even a scene, a very, very lovely scene, where she goes streaking through a hotel. That's amazing. You just cannot complain about that when it's Olivia Wilde.
Nope.
But, you know, some of it was a little off, because I was like, you know, Paul Haggis is married, and Olivia Wilde's like got a thing going on with Jason Sudeikis. Paul Haggis's camera seemed really, really, really in love with her. But like I said, it's Olivia Wilde. The camera's just naturally going to do that. Mila Kunis is also really good. Franco is there. Franco finally gets a big scene towards the end, where he finally gets to be really good. But for a while there, I thought he wasn't even going to have a purpose. I thought he was practically just having a cameo.
Yeah.
Kim Basinger and Maribel basically do only have cameos. They have like one scene each where they get to do their thing and then they're gone. So yeah, you've seen this movie before. The reveals are not that surprising. The stories themselves are riddled with cliches. All of the cliches of the genre are here. And it's just... no. This movie wasn't working for me. So... yeah, and it's not even interesting. Like, there's not even really that many peaks. Like, the big reveals are all we have to rely on as far as, is this story doing anything? So, I wasn't a fan. I guess I'm just really hard to please in this video. I'm sorry if I come off that way.
The next one you don't need to apologize.
Okay, our 5th movie is an indie movie. I think it was probably Sunday's probably been at a lot of film festivals. Obvious Child, which is basically Jenny Slate trying to do Louie as a feature-length film.
Yep.
Because it starts off with her doing, she's not playing herself or anything, but it starts off with her doing stand-up. And we get that intercut with the movie itself. Because she plays a stand-up comedian that this happens to. I don't know, maybe she was trying to homage Louie, I don't know, but it was too close for comfort and doing it wrong. The main plot of the movie is maybe you know who Jenny Slate is. If you watch Parks and Recreation, or if you she was the woman that got fired for saying "fuck" on the air on Saturday Night Live. So what happens here is she's got a boyfriend and she's doing her stand-up act, and naturally her stand-up act talks about her personal life. Too much so because her boyfriend leaves her. He does the thing where he's watching in the audience and he gets embarrassed and he walks out. And they break up. So she's like, oh my god, how do I handle this breakup? I better go, sleep around because I'm in an indie movie. I'm a free spirit. It's one of those movies. So she meets this dude whose name I don't recall. To be honest, I don't recall any of the names in this movie. So, she meets this guy, and they do their thing, and then they go back, they have a one-night stand. She only wants to have a one-night stand, but then the movie turns into Juno. But then they go a separate route. It goes the route that Juno was originally going to go, but then veered off into something else. This goes that direction. This is an abortion movie. That's exactly what it is. It's an hour and 20 minutes of a woman talking about how she's going to get an abortion. With a shit joke in every scene. Or a bodily function joke in every scene, whichever one you want. The bonding scene between the girl and this guy is pissing on a sidewalk. This is the romanticism in this movie. No, but they're so cutesy and real. It's okay. So, regardless, this is one of the, okay. The whole movie hinges on whether or not you like this character and this performance. Jenny Slate is not a bad actress, and the performance isn't bad. It's the character is the problem. Here's the thing. This is basically, if you've watched the other review videos, you know this is a bad thing for me, even though both these movies are critically acclaimed for some reason. And this movie is too, so it makes sense. This character played by Jenny Slate in this movie is basically a combination of Greta Gerwig and Frances Ha and Lake Bell in a World. Two unbearable characters brought together to make one disgustingly unbearable indie cliche. Which the other two already were by themselves before they combined to make this monster. So, granted, there was one thing. One thing that I think kind of works about this movie is the, I don't know if you can call it a love story, but the guy falls for her and wants to keep hanging out with her, and she keeps wanting to avoid him. But when they finally do kind of start to become an item, there's like a genuinely sweet love story that could have been happening here. But she chooses to avoid him so that she can be, front and center in her, look how cutesy and realistic I am, aren't I, relatable and amazing and quirky. This genre of the 20-something relatable, quirky person with a dead-end life needs to sing a new song now or die as soon as possible. Because this is driving me insane. She has a best friend played by Gabby Hoffman, which is really confusing because I'm normally not one to do this because I've seen so many movies and know so many different actors and actresses. When a scene would begin, I wasn't quite sure if I was looking at Jenny Slate or Gabby Hoffman sometimes.
Yeah, it happened a few times for me too.
But no, it's mainly her, because she's the main character, and Gabby Hoffman's just playing the best friend. The best friend in any movie is the part you've seen everywhere. Every person in this movie you've seen everywhere.
Yes.
And speaking of In a World, remember that scene in a World with Ken Marino and the party? That scene basically happens here, except it's with David Cross, who is not quite playing himself, but is playing a stand-up comedian. And he is basically desperate to get with her, but has always failed and will continue to fail because his character is really weird and creepy. And wears women's clothes for some reason. Funny, I guess. So, now, and this is another one of those movies where I have no idea where the fault line for this movie comes from, but she's one of those characters that is obviously under the impression that she's hilarious. It seems like one of those movies that would be written and directed by the actress that stars in it, but that's actually not the case. I actually thought it was before I actually, looked into it and read the credits and stuff. This is one of those characters where if she actually says something that's actually even remotely funny, she'll just drag it out forever and make it go on for 5 minutes before the scene ends and kill it completely. And she's one of those ones where she's trying to be, quirky and lovable, but at the same time will try to say something really shocking and dirty. And talk about, like, candid things. And be provocative. Whatever. It just... Oh, God. If you've seen, any of one of those 20-something dead-in-life movies, this is just exactly that. Now here's the thing. Pretty much it's also really predictable. We saw this right after Third Person. I felt like with the Olivia Wilde twist in it, and the who was what and the big reveals, and then this particular scene with the mother and obvious child, I honestly thought I had gone psychic for a day.
Yeah.
That or we were just watching the most predictable movies in the entire world back to back. Through the entire movie, the big problem she's having is, oh my god, I have to tell my mom I'm having an abortion. She will never approve and she will hate me. That's the big issue. So finally she sits down with the mother and she's like, hey, I'm going to have an abortion. Long before this scene took place, I knew exactly where this conversation was going.
Yeah.
And oh my god, what a shocking reveal. Basically every single scene in this movie involves some kind of contrived plot point. It just so happens that the reason the love story can continue is because her mother is the love interest's professor. And he has to return a book to her. That apparently he knows where she lives and he can just return to her and oh my god, she just happens to be there. Oh my god. So, yes. I feel like I've reviewed this movie a lot before. No. I don't know where the acclaim for this movie is coming from.
No.
People just really love that quirky, I'm so realistic indie shit.
Okay.
But the thing is this is, okay, do you know what the main problem here is, actually, is all of this that I've said could be forgiven if the movie was fine.
Yeah.
Because, despite the, that's the thing, despite the, it's really, really edgy because despite the fact that it's about abortion, it's a comedy. Because, so edgy and, whatever. Yes. So, not a fan of this genre, not a fan of this movie, not a fan of this week.
I love Greta, but this movie is way too far.
So, finally, we get to end on our last movie. The Saving Grace, I guess. Our last movie is Life Itself, the highly anticipated Roger Ebert documentary that was put together by his wife and the director of Hoop Dreams, and The Interrupters, both of which are, fantastic documentaries. Not as many people know about The Interrupters, but I would definitely check it out if you can. There's kind of a debate going on about this movie. And I can totally see where it's coming from, because I was thinking the same thing. The big debate with this movie is the movie great, or is it just Ebert's life was great? It's kind of hard to distinguish the two. It's really that way with a lot of documentaries, but in this one it really stands out, because this documentary doesn't really do anything, groundbreaking as far as documentaries go, and doesn't really do anything, totally revealing that you couldn't read in his biography. But, especially since he was so personal in his reviews, you already know so much about him. but it's just, you know, the story of Ebert's life is just something that you just can't help but just take in everything you can get. Because he was like one of the most, obviously one of the most fascinating people in the business, let alone... it was mainly supposed to be, the interesting thing about it is the way it's set up. It cuts back and forth between present day and the past. We start at like his beginning, and we see like pictures of him as a kid, and then when he got his first job as a journalist, and then to when he got to this point. And we're cutting back and forth with the footage of him that was like the last couple of months of him in the hospital. The whole movie was supposed to be based on his memoir. It was basically just supposed to take that story and put it to film. But he died before they finished it, so it started to become... The second half of it started to become that. Now, it's really... It's hard to review a movie like this. It's basically really important because it tells the story of the guy that... Especially, like, on a video like this. Because it's really important to basically tell the story of the guy that, like, brought criticism and analysis of movies to the mainstream. Which seemed kind of odd at the time. And seemed kind of... People thought it was kind of a pointless thing to do. But he basically made it an art form, more or less. Like, all just... Pretty much anytime you see a critic or you see, like, the catchphrases on DVD covers or whatever. Era was basically the birth of that, and basically the birth of film criticism itself. But not only does it touch on that, but it takes us through like all the personal stuff, like his battle with alcoholism and his, I guess the diversity when he decided to fall in love with and marry a black woman. And religion kind of factors in a little bit also. And you see kind of his change from when he was always going to the bars and basically, you know, verbally assaulting people on a daily basis. And there's a supposed story where he stole a cab from a pregnant woman. And then how once he married Chaz, he basically became more of like he became more in touch with his sensitive side and the family man side of himself. And it kind of changed his outlook in other different various ways that you could see in his writing. So, yeah, he's always basically been the go-to when, like, if you see a movie and you're not quite sure, you know, how... You feel something, but you don't quite know exactly what you're feeling. If you just go and read his review, he can put it in the exact words you're looking for. And he, like, as, like, somebody that's, like, you know... I'm writing, like, 5 scripts at a time now. I can read his books, like, front to cover over and over and over again. And they're, like, the perfect how-to guide. And it's not even about, like, he actually did write one really extremely successful screenplay with Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. But just reading his reviews alone is, like, a how-to in, like, what to do and what not to do when you're trying to make something good into a movie. And we see how he basically got to be, like, he was really, really in touch with his readers. Like, there was, like, nothing more important to him than the actual readers, and how he would, like... He'd always put, like, so much personal information into his reviews, and to basically describe exactly... To put us exactly in the mind of why he was reacting to the movie the way he was. He would tell us, like, a whole anecdote, a personal anecdote about himself, and then that would basically explain why he felt about the movie the way that he did. But it was never overkill. It was always, like... It just fit perfectly with what he was trying to evoke with saying what he felt about it. And he would always, like, answer fan letters or actually respond to comments on his website. One of the harder things to watch in the movie is when we cut back to, like, the hospital footage, we talk about... it kind of comes up on the screen, too. We see the director sent him, like, a questionnaire. And he said, well, you know, I'll take the questions one at a time. And as the movie goes on, we see him answering these questions, and it's like these full, long, gigantic essay answers. But then as his health's getting worse and the movie's getting farther on, his answers are getting less and less, and it just gets to the point to where he's asked a question and he can't even answer it. Like you see like the perfect punctuation and the capitalization and all that. And then there's one point where he sends him a question and Ebert's response in all lowercase is, "I can't." And that's all it says. And it's really hard to watch, especially when he has to go through... You see, like, everything he goes through. Like, all the way to the end. And there's sometimes those uplifting moments where it's like, you know... We go through the whole process of, like, what Chaz had to go through on camera with the... Some days are good and some days are horrible, and... It just manages to give us the whole experience. Which is very, very enlightening while also really hard to take at times. But that's, you know, the most you can ask from a documentary is to put you, like, right there. But the movie does have its lights. There's a lot of hilarity. Like, just hearing some of, like, you know, the insults that Ebert's given in the past, and then the whole big segment where they talk about his relationship with Siskel. The whole Siskel segment of this up until Siskel's death is hilarious. Where we just learn everything about their feud and their inevitable brotherhood through all of this. There's the great scene. I saw this on YouTube a while back and I was really hoping they'd put it in the movie, and they did. There's this great segment on YouTube where there's an outtakes from when they were doing like a promo video for At the Movies. And they kept Siskel kept messing up, and then they just got into this back and forth verbal attack on camera. Uncensored. They showed portions of it in the movie. It's like a whole 8.5-minute video on YouTube. The whole thing's worth watching. And of course there's interviews, like, there's interviews with directors he really respected, like Scorsese and Werner Herzog, and, critics like A.O. Scott. And the thing that we see in these clips, a lot of these clips I hadn't even seen before, and probably most haven't, it's, despite the fact that he made his living criticizing movies, he had so many Hollywood friends. Like, that he would criticize openly, and it was just... Alright, that's just the way it was. Like, he was being dead... He wasn't just doing it as a joke because he was there. He was being absolutely dead serious. There was a clip of them where they're on a talk show, and Ebert's there. Ebert's the second guest, and Chevy Chase was the first guest. So Chevy Chase is sitting there next to him, and he asks, so what's the worst... I think it's Carson there one, actually. He says, what's the worst movie you've seen so far this year? What is the absolute worst that it gets? And without even looking at Chevy Chase, he just answers absolutely honestly, Three Amigos. And he's being dead serious, too. He really hated Three Amigos that much. And he didn't even think twice about saying it right there sitting next to Chevy Chase. And he still had Hollywood friends despite that. Because that's just the way it was. Because sometimes, you know, people just have to be made aware of the fact that their movies suck. I don't think Three Amigos sucks, but I thought it was hilarious that he was able to do that.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to watch a lot of the stuff because it's hard to watch somebody go through this who basically was... Basically, the title comes from the fact that Ebert was just all about life in general. Like, he lived life as much as he possibly could, and that really shined through in his reviews. Like, I've read Your Movie Sucks I don't know how many times. The reviews in that are hilarious. He has 2 reviews in it that he gave 0 stars. It was for the Texas Chainsaw remake with Jessica Biel and Wolf Creek. And in those reviews, and also he does a whole thing on chaos, where he brings up religion and just everything. And he basically talks about how, there's a particular part where he talks about the Wolf Creek review where, the scene where John Jarrett stabs the girl in the spine and calls her head on a stick. His response was, I wanted to get up out of that theater, walk out the door, and just not come back. I just wanted to keep walking forever. And then there was a time where he said, there was a point in time in the middle of Texas Chainsaw where he just wanted to get out and go to, like, a small, you know, stand and buy an apple and look at the sun. Because Texas Chainsaw was just killing his love for life that much. Because it was just so bleak. So it's really hard to watch somebody that loved life that much go through what he goes through. But he really, really wanted this documentary made and really wanted it put out there because he has so much respect for his readers and his fans to know everything about him, basically. It's worth noting, I guess it's just for time, I don't know, there's not even a slight mention of Roper in this movie. I don't know what happened there, but it's probably just a time restraint, because the movie, as is 2 hours long, so, but yeah, it's a great, like I said, the big debate stands whether it's the movie that's great or just his life in general that's great, and the movie didn't have to do a lot of work, because a lot of it's archive footage. One of the most powerful scenes in the movie is the big memorial they have, where there's like thousands of people there, and they all put their thumbs up.
Yeah, I saw that in the trailer we actually got to see.
Yeah. So yeah, it's whether which side you stand on that debate, it basically exists as a presentation of a really, really great and inspirational life, especially if you love movies the way that he did. Because he's basically the reason a lot of people love movies the way they do. Like, he was the one that kind of brought that to attention. And the stuff that's hard to watch, in most documentaries, that's basically put in there for like, yeah, we're gonna make you cry, we're gonna... You watch how bad this is. It wasn't... You could tell it wasn't doing that for that. It was... He just wanted to show us his life. That's all it was. They were just showing us what was happening. Just showing life in general. So... That's pretty much what the movie is. As far as Oscar season, they're predicting it's either going to be one of two things. It's either going to be the one that sweeps, or it's the one that everybody loves that doesn't even get nominated. Like Hoop Dreams or Waiting for Superman. Or it could be the one that just sweeps everything. It could go either way.
Could happen.
So, since he was so beloved in the industry, and it's basically a movie about a guy that brought love for movies to the mainstream, I'd like to think the industry will... Obviously, you got the likes of Scorsese and Herzog backing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, as always, we're going to recap everything one last time, yay or nay. So, we'll start with The Purge, Anarchy.
Maybe in time it'll grow on me, but right now I'm going to say no.
Sex Tape?
No.
Planes, Fire, and Rescue?
No, not even for your tiny, tiny kids. There are better things.
What would those be right now?
I don't know.
Yeah, no one does. Third Person?
No.
Obvious Child?
No.
And Life Itself?
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you have a love for movies the way people who analyze movies do.
Alrighty, so that's another edition of AJ's Movie Reviews. Next week we're going to be talking Hercules and Lucy. And we have some other films coming up.
God,
and we actually have confirmation that we're going to be reviewing Boyhood soon, too, in the next month or so.
Eventually.
Yeah, that's what we're looking forward, probably before I leave in September. So, of course, as always, Brandy Verse is coming out this Sunday, very David Fincher heavy. And Ashley's Popcaster Across the Pond segment. Don't have it yet, but hopefully it'll come, and if not, I got a SmackDown NXT video for you guys to make up for it. So, more Horror Nights news when I get it, and as always, AJ, any parting words?